Hey everybody, this is Cadroll Hunter, and I have a huge tower of pennies, 3 full boxes of Canadian pennies. This is going to be a monster hunt. Hey everybody, this is James, and you're watching my channel, Cadroll Hunter, and that's right, I have a huge stack of pennies here. And as you know, Canadian pennies don't circulate. You can't normally get them easily from the bank. They're not supposed to give them to you. Well, these pennies actually came from a subscriber of mine, Monte, contacted me and said, hey, I got a whole bunch of pennies, asked if I'd be interested. And of course, I was interested. And here they are. This is 15 bundles of 10 rolls. So we have 150 rolls of pennies, 150. So that's $75 worth of pennies. That is the equivalent of 3 boxes. Now, normally, as you know, I only hunt a couple of bundles at a time because there's so much to find. So I don't know if I'm actually going to get to all of this in this video. We're going to do a bunch. I don't know what's in here. Monte had collected these pennies over time, threw them in a bucket. They were essentially in a bucket when I got it. I got somebody to roll them up for me. We haven't looked through any of them. I don't know what's in here. And so we're just going to have fun. I have no idea. So let's just crack into some rolls and see how far we get. First roll, first find, we've got a 1962. This is a Laureate portrait penny. So that's a good start to our hunt. And there is Queen Elizabeth II. What we're going to be looking for, of course, are any errors or varieties. We've been fortunate to find some really cool stuff. We got that 2006 no P, no logo, magnetic. Any of this newer stuff, the zinc or steel sense, I'm going to be taking the magnet to any of those to see if there's anything that we're looking for. We're going to be looking for anything old. We're going to be looking for maybe some American wheat sense, anything that we might get in here. So we'll just keep going. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we're also going to separate out any copper. So any Canadian cents from 1996 and earlier are copper, and we'll separate those out. I got a whole whack of copper cups here, so we're hoping to fill those up with some copper. So far, mostly newer zinc and steel cents, but we've got a few copper ones for the copper cup. Well, it didn't take very long. One of those first copper cents is going to yield our first really cool variety. Look at that die deterioration doubling on this 1979. We've got the double 979. It's pretty pronounced all through there. And you can see this die was really worked hard. We've got die deterioration doubling all across the maple leaf. A very cool find. Still in that first roll, there's a 1964. So we have another Laureate portrait. So we're finding a lot of newer scents, but we've got some cool stuff, a little bit of older stuff in here as well. It's going to be an interesting mix. Same roll, and we're going to have an oldie. We got a 1950. This is King George VI. So we've got ourselves a hunt. Pretty awesome. And check this out. We've had a little bit of everything here already in this first roll. We have a foreign Commonwealth of the Bahamas 1979 with the starfish, 1 cent. That is pretty cool. Roll 2, there's another Laureate portrait. What's this one going to be? It's a 1963, and of course the Laureate portrait could be anything from a 53 up to a 64. In 65, the portrait changed, and in 53, of course, is when Elizabeth ascended the throne. Roll 3, and we've got a 2012 penny. That's the last year for the penny in Canada. It's not rare at all. 111 million of them were made. This one is in decent enough condition, but it's not perfect, so it's not something I would keep. Roll number 3 is going to give us our 4th Laureate portrait. This one is going to be another 1964. Roll number 4, there's another Laureate portrait, a 1962 to add to our growing list of finds. We're in roll number 5. I've got a 1969 under the scope, and it's going to be one of those minor varieties. It's going to be the double 9. And again, this is die deterioration doubling. You can just see along the side of that 9, that doubling there. It's not on any of the other numbers, but sometimes it's really pronounced, like that 79 we found where it was on at least 3 of the numbers. You can find that on these ones as well. If I rotate it around, you can see it persists. It's not a shadow. It's not a doubled die or anything like that. This is from die deterioration. Same roll, and we found another 4 9. I don't even know how this one kind of went unnoticed, because I had somebody wrap these all up, and I'm surprised they would have even just found that in there. But it is a euro. It is going to be 1 euro cent. And I'm going to have to look up, oh, this is going to be, I think, Germany with that oak. And it looks like, if I can get close enough, it looks like it might be a 2002. Well, things had slowed down a little bit until we got here into roll number 8. And check it out, we've got another George VI. What's it going to be? That's a 1943. That is our oldest penny of the hunt so far. And just a few coins behind that, there's his daughter, Elizabeth II. And this one will be another 1964. And things must be heating up, because, check it out, same roll. It's a 1944. End of roll 9, we got one more laureate portrait here. This one is another 64, probably the most common of the laureate portrait. Okay, one bundle down, quick recap. We got a couple of foreigns, we got a few King George VI, we got some laureate portrait, and we got a couple of varieties with some of that doubling. We still have a whole lot to go. We'll keep going until I feel this video is going to get too long, but here is bundle number 2. Let's see what we find in here. So just getting started in roll 11, we've got another 1962 here, and there are some varieties we can find on this 62. I haven't found myself, but I'm always looking. I'll just throw it under the scope. We'll take a quick peek here. What we're looking for is the guitar or harp variety, which actually has some lines coming down from this one, some kind of a die anomaly. And it's really cool. The guitar and the harp are essentially the same, but probably at different stages. So one has more complete lines all the way down to the leaf. The other one sort of has partial lines that come down. Something to be looking for on your 1962s. Another variety you definitely want to be looking out for is the 1985 pointed 5. This is the blunt 5, the common one. The pointed 5 comes to a point here, and this isn't it. I found a couple of them, and if you can find them in pretty decent condition, even like this one right here, it's probably a $50 coin, so you want to be looking out for that. I scope every 1985, just in case. I don't want to miss one. In this same roll, we've got another laureate portrait, and it looks like we might have an older Lincoln cent right behind it, so we'll take a peek at that. So this one, 1964, and it is an older one. Look at that. It is a wheat cent, 1947 Denver. Let's get a closer look at that bad boy. That's pretty awesome. When we flip it over, there are those wheat ears. Pretty worn, but we got a wheat cent. That's awesome. Still at it in this roll, and we're going to have another one. Let's just flip it over and see what we've got. It's an older one. It's a 1953. This is a first year Queen Elizabeth, and it means there are some varieties we could look for on this one too. In some of the years in the early 50s, 53, 54, 55, some of the coins had a shoulder fold or a strap line on the Queen's dress, and some didn't. And when they're in really poor condition, like this one is, circulated and worn, you can't really tell, at least not easily. But if we scroll up to the lettering, thankfully, the lettering is different. On this one, this had some flared ends to the eye here. That's the easiest part to look at. This is the common no shoulder fold. And again, you can't really tell much on this one. It doesn't look like there's a fold, but with even the shoulder fold would be fairly worn in this condition. But it's a no shoulder fold. There's something going on here, but I think this is just damage as opposed to any kind of a die breaker, die crack, or anything like that. But we got the pretty common 1953 no shoulder fold penny. That's awesome. Roll 13, a lot of copper in here, but we hadn't found anything old yet until this one. And this one is a 1957. That's our first 57 of the hunt. I am finding some nice older copper cents that have some interesting dark toning. If I put this under the scope, you can actually almost see a little bit of rainbow in here. And I think it just has to do with the conditions in which they were stored. So probably not ideal, but for toning, it creates a pretty interesting look on the coin. This one's in pretty good shape. It's still got some luster, but definitely toning. Roll 14, we got another 79 with some doubling. There is the double 7-9 clear doubling at the base of the 7 and the 9 from die deterioration, but we don't see anything on these first numbers. And you can find it with just the 9, the 7-9, the 9-7-9, or the whole 4 numbers of the date, which is really, really cool. And sometimes it can be pretty spectacular. So really fun variety. Probably not a lot of value, but something really interesting to add to your collection. And speaking of varieties, we found a Lincoln cent here. This is one of those Lincoln commemorative, the formative years. He's sitting on a log reading a book. And what I understand is that there are a bunch of examples with doubled dies on here. So let's get it under the scope and see if he might have an extra finger or so. All right, well, there's Abe on the log, and I don't see any extra fingers. You might see something over here. I'm not an expert in this variety. I think there's a doubling you can find on the book, and not seeing it here. So this one's just going, it's not in great shape, so it's just going in the zinc cent pile. But something you want to look for is if there's any errors on this coin, they can be fun to find. Well, here's something I don't find a lot of. I got a 1973, put it under the scope, and it is a San Francisco minted cent. I don't find a lot of San Francisco minted cents in my coin roll hunt, so those are fun to find. I probably already have this one. It's not in a mint state by any stretch, though it's not in terrible, terrible shape, but that's a cool one. We're already in roll 18. It's been slow going, but right here, just sitting just like this, a few coins in, is a laureate portrait in pretty nice condition with some mint luster. So, and some toning, which is actually pretty cool. But this one, it's probably going to be a late 60s, 64 probably. And it's not. It's a 1959, and it is in beautiful condition. That's the nicest of the older laureate portraits we've found. Let's just take a little closer peek under the scope. And this is going to be a pretty good find. I could see it. I thought maybe it was a scratch, but look over top of the 9 on here. This is a die clash. That is an impression of the queen's chin on the other side and neck. The two dies clashed, hit without a blank planchet in the middle to add this impression. It's really common through the 50s and 60s, but you often can't see it unless the coin is in nice condition. And this one is in really nice condition. A 1959, that is what they call the hanging 9, that die clash. That's an excellent find. Very good. Roll 19, and we've got a 1964 that still has a bit of mint luster, which is always cool. And if we find it, like I said when we saw that 59, it's usually on a 64 because that was very plentiful and the newest of them. But that's a good find anyhow. So normally 20 rolls is where I stop when I'm doing pennies because there's lots of things to find. But rather than do that, I think what we'll do for Monte's Hoard of Pennies, we had the equivalent of 3 full boxes. I think what we'll do is we'll just keep going right now and do a full box, so 3 more bundles. And I'll probably split this then into 3 videos where we do a box each and see what we can find. We've got some good stuff, but we're going to keep going. I'm going to take 3 bundles. I'm going to grab this bundle here and this bundle here, and we'll take maybe this bundle here. And we're going to keep on with these. I'm going to put the rest of these away, and we'll come back to them at another time. But we're going to keep on keeping on right here with these bundles and see what we can find. And we're back. I've tidied up the desk. I put all the other coins we're not going to look at just yet away. And I had to do that because it's actually been a few days. We had a lot of stuff going on here at home, so had to dismantle everything and got everything back together here again. But we're ready to carry on for my first ever full box penny hunt. We're going to get into the 3rd bundle here, starting with roll number 21. I usually stop at 20, as I said, but we're going to keep on keeping on, as I said. Roll 22, and we're going to get our second 1959. Not nearly as nice as that other one, and we're probably not going to be able to tell if it's got the hanging die clash. I don't see it, but that's another 1959. That's a good find. Same roll, and we're going to have our second 1963 of the hunt. And in that roll, we found a pretty brilliant looking 2012. That is the last year of the Canadian penny. And this seems to be a pretty nice example of that. I might even set that aside. This isn't rare. They made lots and lots and lots of them, but it was the last year the penny was produced. It's a cool one. Roll 24, and we've got another 1962 laureate portrait. Very next coin is a 1969 San Francisco US, but it is not the double die obverse. Roll number 25. There is a laureate portrait facing us. What is it gonna be? It's another 1964. Same roll, and there is a really nice 1980 in there. Beauty. That's the very last coin of roll number 26, and we got another 1962. I'll check all of the 62s at the end for the guitar or harp variety, so I don't miss anything, but I can't see anything by the naked eye here. Roll 29, there is a laureate portrait with some luster and some damage. That's too bad. Probably going to be a 63 or 64 if I had to guess. And it is. It's a 1963. And you can see there are parts of it that look shiny and new and other parts that are looking pretty terrible. Interesting. Same roll, and it's been a while, but we got another oldie. This is a King George VI, a last year King George VI, a 1952. And there he is. And just a little further back, another 1963 with some gunk on it. We'll take it. We've got something in roll 30. What is it gonna be? It's gonna be a 1953. And we can check this one and see which variety it is gonna be. Okay, we've got it under the scope, and without a doubt, it is the no shoulder fold variety. We can tell by the flared serifs on that eye. And if we want to take a look at the shoulder, we don't see the shoulder fold, obviously, because this is the no shoulder fold, but in this circulated condition, it would be hard to tell anyway. So luckily, we can check that marker on the letters. We're getting towards the end of roll number 30, and we're going to have a beauty here. It looks like, at least from the obverse, we've got a laureate portrait. And this one, no surprise, it's a 63, but it's a pretty nice looking 1963. We don't often find them that nice for sure. We're already in roll number 33. I'm bringing you in because it's been slow, but we've got to find it. And it's pretty awful looking. It's a really corroded penny, but you can see it says et ind imp towards the bottom. This is a King George VI. And look at how corroded it is. You can just sort of barely make them out. I don't even know if we're going to be able to see the date. I might have to throw this under the scope. I can't tell. Let's see. Okay, there it is under the scope. We can see it's a 1943, and it's in pretty awful condition, but we'll set it aside. It is a find. It's a 40s penny in our penny hunt. Roll number 34, and I've got a 1960D US cent under the scope here, and we can check to see if it's the large date or the small date. It's actually the large date. This top end of the 6 is quite a bit larger. The small date, this is shorter. There's also a D over D mint mark, and you would actually see another D up here close to the tail of the 9. We don't have that, and both the small date and the large date in the 1960D are both fairly common, but there are two varieties you can look for. And just behind that 60D, we got a 1963 Canadian laureate portrait. And speaking of varieties to look for, we've got a 1982D here, and of course the one everybody's looking for is the 1982 small date with the D mint mark that weighs over 3 grams, meaning it's copper. That's the one. There's only a few that have ever been found. This is the large date. You can tell that 2 is very distinctive. The small date has a more curved 2, but just for funsies, we can take this and put it on the scale and see what it is. It has the look of copper, and for sure there it is, 3.13 grams. So it's copper. If it had been the small date, 1982D, and weighed that much, well, we'd be rich. Same roll, and we've got another oldie. We got a 1955, which means we can check it for some varieties. There is a shoulder fold and a no shoulder fold. The no shoulder fold is exceedingly rare and quite valuable. Even in this condition it would be, so we'll check that out. There's also a large denticle and small denticle variety, so let's take a peek at this coin and see what we got. All right, here it is under the scope. You can maybe just make out the shoulder fold here, and just to be sure, we can check the lettering, and you can see that I in the motto is actually quite slim, so that's the shoulder fold. It is common. And these denticles, we might need to get another 55 to compare, but these look like the small denticles. They're not big and chunky. So this may be the small denticle shoulder fold 1955. Just cracked into roll number 38, and I've got this coin that is terribly, terribly corroded. But you can see it is a copper Lincoln cent. And I threw it under the scope to see the date. You can't see anything on the reverse at all. But when I throw it under the scope, it looks like it's an oldie. I think what we've got here is a 1946. I believe it's a 46 and not a 40. It looks like the tail of that 6 goes up. So this would be a wheat penny, but it's a wheat penny with no wheat stalks on it. You can't see any. I think that's our second wheat set. It's terribly corroded. You can barely make it out. But it's a find for the board, a 1946 US wheat cent. Same roll, and I think we're going to be on a bit of a streak because we've got another wheat cent. It is a 1953 Denver, but this time we're going to be able to see those wheat stalks on the reverse. It's in much, much better condition. So that's a cool one, 1953 Denver. And still in that roll, it's our second 1957. We're doing really well with this roll. Roll number 41, we've got another laureate portrait. It's another 1963. That's probably our 6th or 7th of the hunt so far. Roll 43, and there is a Queen Elizabeth laureate portrait. And let's just check it out. It could be old. And it's not. It is a very common last year laureate portrait, 1964. Same roll, there's another one now. Will this one be older? It is. It's a 1959. Roll 44, we're going to have another find. This one is another 64. I've just laid out roll number 46, and you can see here that a lot of these edges are newer and shiny. In the last couple rolls, I found a lot of newer stuff in the early 2000s and late 90s. And you can see the same thing with the edges here are some newer designs and nice and shiny. So I don't know if we're going to find anything old here. I'm hoping to find something else. We got a lot of good stuff here, of course, but hopefully in the last few rolls we'll find something interesting. Of course, I should say that when we have a lot of newer, shinier coins, it gives us some opportunities to find some of the rare varieties, those 2003s, 2006s. There's a 2007 to look out for that, whether it's a steel or a zinc, depending on the year. So that's always cool too, because you never know what you're going to find in here. Roll 47, and there she is. Let's see what it is. Another 1959. This is our 4th 1959, including, of course, we got that really, really nice looking one very close to the beginning of the hunt. Awesome. Just at the end of roll number 48, and we're going to find another foreign. This one is smaller than the rest. This one is half of a new penny. This is going to be from Great Britain, and this one is from 1974, and that's a cool find. A little bit smaller than our pennies. That's a half a penny, I guess, but a cool find in a box of, or a roll of Canadian pennies. Roll 49 is going to give us another 1964. And only a few coins behind that one. What do we got this time? This one is a 1962. Awesome. All right, we're down to the last roll of 50, the first video of Monte's penny hoard. Are we going to find any treasure in this last roll? Let's find out. Well, we are not going to be disappointed in this last roll because look what we have here. We've got an older King George VI. And I just threw it down there. It looks like it's got some damage or something on it, some corrosion perhaps. It's a 1944, so we got an oldie, King George VI. That's awesome. And George isn't going to be alone in that last roll because Queen Elizabeth is going to come back. And this one's in pretty nice shape. It's got some mint luster. That's a cool way to finish off this hunt for sure. Of course, we still have a handful of pennies here to go. Okay, so that is the end of our 50-roll Canadian penny hunt. I'll organize all the finds and we'll take a look at everything that we got. All right, here is everything we got in our hunt. You can see that we've got all of our copper over here and our steel and zinc cents, the Canadian ones over here. We had a little bit more in the way of steel and zinc, but not so much more when we add all of our older finds in here, most of which are copper. It's pretty close. And if you're interested in knowing what we got in 50 rolls of pennies, we got 6 pounds, 11.8 ounces. I know that Rob Finds Treasure measures every time he does a box. This really you can't compare with a US hunt because Canadian coins don't circulate. So this isn't necessarily a representation like in the States of what's actually circulating in any area and what's a good box versus a bad box. These are probably coming out of people's piggy banks and just jars and kitchen drawers and whatever. And so it is what it is. Not to mention the fact that Canadian pennies were copper quite a bit longer than US pennies. US pennies were copper until 1982. Canadian pennies were copper until 1996. So we should expect more copper in Canadian cents. So we'll start with our US cents. We got a bunch of copper. I keep all of my copper aside from the zinc and steel. We got a good stack there in our 50 rolls. And we got a few foreigns. We got a 2002 €1 cent. It's from Germany and it's got a D mint mark. We've got 1 cent from the Bahamas from 1979 with that starfish. And we got a 1974 half new penny from the Great Britain or the United Kingdom, if you wish. In our Canadian finds, laureate portrait in the 60s, we got 6 1962s. We didn't get any harp or guitar varieties. We got 7 1963s. That's a pretty nice one on the top there. And we got 11 1964s. They are the most plentiful. That one on top is actually in really good condition, but it's got some interesting toning. In the 50s, we got 4 1959s, including that really nice one on the top. Got a couple of 57s. We got a 55 and a 53. Both of those are the common varieties for that year. We did find some older stuff, some King George VI, a couple of 43s, a couple of 44s. We got a 50 and a 52. And in our other Canadian finds, we ended up getting 5 1979s with doubling on the date. I didn't show you all of them. We got 169 with doubling. We got a pretty nice 1980 with lots of mint luster. And a really nice looking 2012, last year of the Canadian penny. So that's what we got in the Canadian finds. We got some American stuff too. So in our miscellaneous American, a pretty nice looking 1982 copper large date. I'm going to check that against my album. We got a 73S. I don't find a lot of S minted cents up here. And we got a 2009. This is a Lincoln commemorative, the formative years. He's sitting on a log. I checked it. I didn't see any of the varieties with the extra finger or some of the double dies that you can find. There's several of them actually. But we got some older US cents too. There's a 1953 Denver wheat penny, a 1947 Denver, and what I think is a 1946 wheat cent in really atrocious condition, but it's always good to find a wheat cent anyway. And we also got a whole pile of zinc cents too, which is really common here in Canada. But that's what we got in 50 rolls of Canadian pennies, mostly Canadian pennies. This was, of course, from Monte's stash. Some of these pennies were piggy bank pennies. Some of these were in storage lockers that he had bought. And we just took them all and looked through to see what we can find. This is just part 1 of Monte's hoard. We have 2 more full boxes to go. So if you like this video, stay tuned. We've got more. Please give the video a like. That's really helpful for the channel. And if you haven't already liked the channel, please give it a thumbs up. Please like the channel and follow us for more videos on coin roll hunting, Canadian coins. We've got new content coming out all the time. You don't want to miss anything. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next time.